where we are. Walking down train tracks, hoping to God that we aren't walking into the heart of darkness, trying to believe that maybe there's a happy ending in an already dead world. Where's the man I knew? The one that went with me to Candyland. Tom laughs and says, Candyland. Candyland isn't real. That life wasn't real. It was all a lie. The truth is that we're living, and we're gonna keep living. Flashback. We see someone holding a knife. As they flip it around, as we see Billy through the reflection of the blade. He's sitting by the water outside of the nest, as we hear a voice saying, "You any good with that thing, son?" James walks up behind him and sits next to him. James says, "You ever take a life before?" Billy just doesn't say anything, and James says, "You haven't." "Well, I'll let you know that my first kill wasn't something I was proud of either, but it made it easy when it was my dead wife I was getting revenge for. That's the thing about killing, Billy. You may think it's hard sometimes, and it can be. However, when you're getting revenge for something or someone that you care for, it makes it all very easy. And sometimes, you have to defend yourself, and you'll have no choice." Billy says, "Well, people protect me. I don't think I'll have to worry about that." James says, "Wrong. Listen, son, you live in a world where, in the span of an hour, you could be homeless, alone, and afraid by being hunted by people who want to hurt you. And I may not be there. Your mother may not be there. You'll be all alone, and you won't have a choice but to use your life against theirs. Trust me when I say, the day will come." Billy looks at him with a scared look on his face and says, "How do you know?" James says, "Because you're my brother's son." Currently, we see Billy can't sleep as he looks out the window to see a blizzard going on. As Ashley opens up the door and says, "Hey, are you okay, kid?" Billy says, "Have you heard anything from Mom yet?" Ashley says, "Not yet. Don't worry. She always comes back. Just try to get some sleep, okay?" Billy says, "Okay. Thanks, Aunt Ashley." She closes the door as he sits there, as he then holds his dad's machete and says, "Help me, Dad. Wherever Mom is, please help her. Don't leave me alone." As he looks like he's holding back tears. We see someone limping on an icy road. As we see Hayley covered in blood, as we see her collapse on the road, as we see she's in a lot of pain, as she then hears deadheads coming from down the road, as she then reaches for her pickaxe, as she's on the ground, and these deadheads come up to her, and with the very little strength that she has left in her, she sweeps the leg of all of these deadheads on the ground at once. As they are on the ground, she stabs all of them in the head, one after another, as she is then laying on the road. As we see she's out of breath, and as we see her side is bleeding very badly, as she then gets up again and slowly starts walking down the road. She hears even more deadheads coming as she then walks into the woods. As she hears the deadheads are getting even closer, as she then goes down and hides into a river to stay hidden because she's too weak to fight them. As we see her hiding underwater, as we see the dead bodies and bones all through the river. As we see, this is the doing of the cannibals. As the dead just keep walking past her, as she looks horrified. Once they're gone, she slowly gets up out of the water and starts walking again. We see someone walking down a road. As we see, they have a knife for a hand. As we see, Roger kills a deadhead and starts walking alone down this long road. We see this man looks at Tom and he says, "Did you hear what I said?" "I really don't like repeating myself." Tom says, "We'll pay for our crimes. But just me. Let them go, all right?" The man smiles and says, "Unfortunately, you all came in together. So you will all pay the consequences together. Take them." Tom grabs him and then socks him right in the face as two guards quickly tackle him to the ground. One loads their gun and points it to Tom's head as River says, "You shoot him and that'll be the last fucking thing you do." Tom says, "Stay out of it, honey. This is my fight." The man gets up and smiles and says, "Wow, you got a mean right hook there." Nah, gentlemen. I like this guy. We're taking him away, separate from the others. He wants to show me how special he is? Well, he's gonna get the chance now." Bruce says, "Let him go, you son of a bitch!" The man looks back and says, "Oh, pardon me, if you don't know by now, I'm the conductor of Ziltramite, and you are under arrest." Take them away. The soldier takes Tom's family away as several soldiers have to hold him back as he says, "I'll kill you for this! I'll kill you for this!" Rivers is yelling, "I'll find you." Tom is crying as he says, "It'll be different. Please, it'll be different." The man says, "Very unpleasant way for me to tell you, sir. But welcome to Ziltramite." As we see Hayley finds an old truck, as she is going up to it and sees a reanimated corpse inside, as she pulls out her knife and kills it, as she stumbles into the truck and stops, as we see the tank is empty, as she finds an old video camera in the back seat, as she turns it on and lets it roll, and she says, "Hello. My name is Hayley Carmela West, and if anyone finds this message, make sure to know that I'm looking for my son. I don't know if he's still alive." As Roger is walking, as we see him stumbling into the fallen apostle nest, as he keeps walking, we see some deadheads hear him and start walking out of the nest. As he uses his blade to kill one after another, as we see the last one he's about to kill, he grabs it and looks at its face as we see it's a reanimated Luke. Roger looks broken by this and starts crying as he says, "My brother, how did they let this happen to you? I took over 10 bullets for you, man. And yet they couldn't even be bothered to take your corpse out of this hellhole." As he keeps crying, as we hear Hayley saying, "But if you're watching this, please try to find him. His name is Billy West. Brown hair, wearing a black jacket with a blue t-shirt." She kind of smiles and says, "A little badass. His father would be proud. I would never say this in the open, but I really don't know if I'm gonna make it out here. I'm gonna try, but I don't know." Roger stabs Luke in the head as he says,
I know if it was you and me, we would have made it out here.
He salutes his friend and says,
You've been relieved of your duties.
As he walks away. We see Tom being brought into a train as he looks back and sees Rivers and Julia being taken into a vehicle together as she screams, Tom! Tom says, Don't stop fighting, baby! Fight! Fight! They push him into the train as it takes off with Tom on the train. As Tom looks out the window, as he watches them drive away with his family, as he has no other choice but to just sit there and watch this happen. We see a man sitting across from him, as he appears to be a prisoner too, as he sees the emotional state that Tom is in, and says,
Yeah, been there, done that, my man.
Tom looks upset and says,
Who are you?
The man puts his hand out to show him some trust and says,
I'm Arlo.
What am I?
Probably the only friend you have right now.
As Hayley says,
If I don't survive, I will break the promise that I made to his father to keep him safe no matter what the cost. God knows I've broken too many promises.
As we see Roger walks up to Ryan and Amelia laying there on the ground with bullets in their head, as Roger doesn't even look happy about this. He reaches into Ryan's pockets for food and pulls out a pack of smokes that he had in his pocket, as he lights one up standing over his dead corpse, as he then walks away from the nest. As Hayley says,
My son is my only purpose, and I would do anything for him, just like my husband did for both of us. I'm Hayley West, signing off.
She gets out of the truck and closes the door as she looks at herself in the rearview mirror and says,
For those who wish I lived.
She starts limping down the road, trying to find her son. We see Dave and the others running through the woods as they all look broken, and Dave says, "They're gaining on us!" They stop, and Sydney says, "Okay, we circle back to the lodge. We get the others, we go." Matthew says, "Yeah, but where?" Sydney says, "It's a place. It's called Ziltramite." Dave just looks and says, "Oh, no, fuck no. We can't put our faith into a place that's probably already a lost cause, Sydney." Sydney says, "Yeah, and I don't know how much faith I have that we can survive out here if we don't. Now those who want to survive, you come with me." The entire group follows Sydney as Dave looks nervous and hangs back and says,
"I hope we don't regret this."
We see Urban sees a bunch of his men are down as Scott runs up to him and says, "Dad, we found our men dead in the garage, but the woman hasn't been found. I think she may have gotten out with the rest." Urban says, "All right, look, them being out here leaves us vulnerable. You take a team, you find them, and you find them all. And son, Audrin, keep him alive. He's mine. We'll have our little beef roast tonight after we kill these people." As we see the men split off. Back at the lodge, we see Miles is awake on guard as we see Ashley sleeping. Miles then hears the wind from outside. As he goes up to the window and closes it, the window starts getting shot at as we see Miles ducks as glass goes everywhere. Ashley and the kids are woken up by this as Miles sees outside the window 8 of Urban's men riding in on horses outside of the lodge. Miles then sees them coming towards the lodge. Out of nowhere, the back door gets busted down as we see Scott and 3 other men come in as they throw a few Molotov cocktails and fire starts spreading across the room. Ashley runs out and shoots 2 of them. Miles pulls out a sword and puts it through one of their torsos. One of them tries shooting Miles as he uses the guy's dead corpse as a shield, as Scott then slips past them as they're distracted by the rest of the men, as Ashley tackles another guy and starts stabbing him repeatedly with her sword. As then fire is spreading across the room and all over the lodge. We see one of the guys attempts killing one of the little kids, as Miles then stands in the guy's way, as he kills the guy in front of him with his sword, as he saves the kid's life. We see Ashley and him are then covered in blood. Billy is standing by the door as he hears somebody coming. Scott knocks the door down and stands there with his bloody knife and says, "Hey there, little boy. Don't worry. I'll be fast with this." Billy then stabs him in the leg as he goes down. Billy uses his chance to grab his bag and jump out the window. Scott is then slowly getting up as we see a few of his men walk in, and Scott says, "Get that kid, now!" Billy runs for his life as he runs away from the lodge as we see Scott and a few other men break off and try to hunt Billy down. Miles and Ashley see the fire on the floor as Miles sees more coming towards the entrance of the lodge, as Miles says, "Here." He sticks his sword in the fire on the floor. Ashley does the same as her and his sword both are lit up on fire. As we see 4 other guys coming for them as they run towards these men, as Miles and Ashley each slash one up, and as they kill these men, their faces light up in flames. They scream out as Miles kills another one by putting his sword through their throat, and their face peels right off. Miles says, "Holy fuck!" Even more men come out of the woods and then shoot Ashley in the shoulder as she falls. Miles then ducks and jumps on top of her to save her life as they're both on the ground, as the kids inside of the lodge are calling for them both. Out of nowhere, all of the men get shot dead by someone, as we see our group walks out with Dave at the front. He gives Miles his hand and says, "My best swordsman, huh? You've looked better." Miles then takes his hand and Miles says, "You came just in time." Ashley says, "Where's Hayley?" Dave just puts his head down and walks to the side as Ashley looks devastated and says, Where is she? Where is she?" She sees how sad they all look, and Audrey says, "My old friends weren't who I thought they were. They were eating people. And when we realized it, and the tables turned, we fought to get out. We did." Sydney pipes in and says, "Hayley got separated in the fight. We tried saving her, but she blew herself up before we could get to her." We see Ashley crying as she says, "What? What the hell are we gonna tell Billy?" Miles looks upset and says, "Okay, let's check on the kids." They go back into the lodge as we see the fire is still spreading, as Dave then says, "Holy shit, Audrey, get that fire extinguisher." Audrey says, "On it, buddy." Audrey and Dave put out the fire as Ashley opens the door to the other room, as she then sees the kids, as she stands there covered in blood, and she says, "It's okay, you're safe now." The kids look scared as she doesn't see Billy. as she says, "Where's Billy?" She runs down the hall calling out for him. "Billy? Billy! Billy!" The whole group does the same as Dave says, "Where the hell is he?" Ashley says, "He was in the room," Dave says. "He must have been hiding." Hell, I can't blame these kids. These people are fucking crazy. But as they enter the room, they see Scott's blood on the carpet from the stabbing. As they look worried, and Ashley says, "Billy?" They see an opened window as Dave says, "There's blood here. Psychos came in. He either ran or they got him." As they both stand there looking horrified, as Dave looks livid now and says, "We're finding that boy. Come on," as we see the open window from where he escaped from. Back with Hayley, we see her limping on the road as she sees an old house up ahead. As she stumbles across the yard, as we see the bleeding is getting worse. As she enters and there's a deadhead at the front, as she just barely builds up the strength to kill it with her pickaxe, as she is barely hanging on, as we see she tries making it to the couch, but she falls back due to blood loss. She falls next to an old family photo on the floor. As she reaches over and picks it up, and she just stares at it, seeing a photo of what was once a happy family. As she looks angry, and she throws the photo towards the wall, breaking the frame, as glass goes everywhere, as she just sits there and cries in anger, and she says, "I let you down. I let you down." As she passes out. Back in Canada, we see Tom looking out the window with a scared look on his face as Arlo says, "Hey, look, we got a lot of time on our hands here, I'm sure. Now, I told you my name, so tell me yours. How did you get yourself involved in this mess?" Tom says, "My name is Tom. I lost my community. I lost my friends, my dog. I lost my brother. Now the only thing I got left that I care for in this world got ripped away from me, and I'd have been gunned down by now, and I couldn't do anything to stop that. Just like I couldn't stop anything else that happened to me. Does that about cover it?" Arlo says, "Yeah, they might be dead, friend, but those people you were ripped apart from, they're not. Maybe that's why people keep dying." Tom says, "What?" Arlo says, "You seek bad luck, and that's what you'll get, my friend. Now, I ain't asking you to pray. Lord knows that's a challenge these days. But listen, man, I had a family, and I lost it to this world. I saw them die a horrible death, but I'm still breathing. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Tom says, "I feel dead already." Arlo says, "Well, that's the biggest load of horseshit I've ever heard. Hey, I ain't fighting alone here. Now tell me, Tom, how are we getting out of this?" Back with Billy. We see he's running through the woods as he looks terrified, as we see him shivering, as we hear the sound of a few men from far, as Billy quickly tries hiding himself in the snow, as he sits there quietly, looking scared, as he's trying to stay quiet, as we see, he overhears two of the men saying, "You see where he went?" The other guy says, "No, I don't see nothing." The other guy says, "You think the deadheads got to him maybe?" We hear Scott's voice saying, "That little psycho stabbed me. He's not dead. He's out here somewhere, and we'll find him." As Billy stays down, as we then see, a deadhead is reaching through the snow and grabs Billy by the jacket. The men hear the deadhead from far as Billy is struggling with the deadhead, as he then stabs and kills the deadhead, with his father's machete, as he then stumbles out of the snow and keeps walking. Back with Hayley, we see two deadheads grabbing at her feet as she is woken up by this, as she drives the pickaxe through them, as she then uses an old iron laying on the floor of this house, and then bashes it in the head of this other deadhead. We then see more deadheads are then banging at the back door, as she then runs out the front to try to escape. As we see she's struggling to walk down this road, as we then see a few deadheads that are frozen stiff in the field, as Hayley then looks at them and says, "Well, I'll be damned. Looks like you finally gave me a break." As she stumbles upon train tracks, as we then see she keeps walking down the tracks, as she walks past a gas station. But then she sees a reanimated tiger as she tries hiding behind an old van as she is bleeding in the snow. As we see, the tiger takes two deadheads and rips them apart very quickly as she is trying to stay hidden as best as she can. As we see a few deadheads walk up in front of her, as she has no choice but to start killing the deadheads in front of her. The tiger sees this and starts approaching. Hayley then has to kill these deadheads, but then the tiger takes Hayley by the leg and drags her down through the snow. As we see Hayley quickly tries pulling out her gun, as she then shoots it several times. She shoots it enough times to get it off of her. She then shoots it again and it falls back, but it also hits a gas tank and blows a car up in front of it. The tiger and Hayley both go down as she is laying on the ground, as she then smiles a bit because she can't believe she's still alive. Back with Billy. We see Billy has been running for a while as he stops and takes a break, as he then stays there for a few minutes, as he reaches in his pack and pulls out Lincoln's gun. As he's trying to stay hidden, as we see Scott and a few other men following his trail, as Scott says, "Give up. I know someone your age has got to be on the verge of giving up by now. Just come on out and we'll get you somewhere safe. Would you like that? Come on, little boy. You and I both know you want that. You want to feel safe." As we see, the only thing keeping Billy safe is his dad's old gun, as he holds it in his hand and looks terrified, as Scott says to his men, "I'll check the area. You guys go downhill." As Scott separates, as we see, two men are approaching Billy's tracks. Billy stands there with the gun in his hand as he says, "Help me. Please, help me." As we hear James's voice saying, "You ever had to take a life before?" Billy holds the gun in his sights as we hear, "And sometimes you have to defend yourself and you'll have no choice." Billy says, "People protect me. I don't think I'll have to worry about that." James says, "Wrong. Listen, son, you live in a world where, in the span of an hour, you can be homeless, alone, afraid, by being hunted by people who want to hurt you. And I may not be there. Your mother, and you'll be all alone, and you won't have a choice but to use your life against theirs." As he then pulls the trigger and shoots and kills two men walking towards him. Scott and his remaining men hear the gunshots and start running towards Billy, as he then says, "That's the little psycho right there. Go, take that fucker's head off." Billy runs for his life as fast as he can, as we see he runs into an old cemetery. As he slowly walks in, he sees he only has one bullet left in the gun. As he puts the gun away in his pack and says to himself, "Save your bullets. as he tries staying hidden in the cemetery. But then we see deadhead hands coming out of the graves. Billy takes a step back in fear as we see the dead start rising out of the ground. Billy runs and falls as all these deadheads are getting killed by Scott and his last two men. As he holsters his gun and says, "Look at you, little boy. You tried. You did. But people gotta eat around here sooner or later." Billy then kicks him in the leg as he goes down, as Billy then stabs Scott in his right eye. As we see he falls, Billy then takes the opportunity to then run as Scott's eye is bleeding very badly. As the men then see this and run up to him, as he slowly is getting up and says, "Ah, fuck!" One of the men says, "Should we follow him?" Scott angrily says, "Fuck the kid. Let him run. He's just dead flesh walking anyway. We're going home." As his eye is bleeding, we see Billy runs away. As we see, he finally got them away from him. As we see a small smile on Billy's face. Back in Canada, we see the French soldier walking down this long hallway. As he walks up to one of the guards, as he says, "The conductor wanted to see me, huh?" The soldier says, "He will be with you in a second, sir." The man says, "Sir? Around my parts, they say monsieur." The soldier says, "Well, in these parts, we say shut the fuck up and wait your turn." We hear the conductor from inside saying, "All right, let him in." The Frenchman looks at the guard and says, "Petit pussy." He walks in, and the conductor sits down as he says, "So, did you get it done, Jacinthe?" Jacinthe says, "Oui, job is fini. Finished." The conductor says, "Good. Even the young one, too?" "Not many people have the balls to take away the younger ones." Jacinthe says, "It was no trouble. Those who steal pay bigger prices for the ones who pay." The conductor says, "Well, I'm very grateful you see it that way." "Stone cold, huh? My, you got ice cold water running through your veins." Jacinthe says, "Merci, sir. Now, when do I see my promotion?" The conductor laughs and says, "And who the hell would want a promotion? You'll have plenty other chances if this doesn't work out." Jacinthe says, "Sounds parfait. So, if you don't mind, I know you work closely with the commander." The conductor says, "Now what little bird told you about that now? My work with the commander isn't an open book, so I'd suggest you tread very lightly. What I do want you to focus on is these new faces coming in and out of this place. And if anything feels off, you know what to do." Jacinthe gives him a nod and walks out of the office, as conductor then says, "Just as playable as a fucking fiddle there, gentlemen." Back with Hayley, we see she's stumbling over the roads as we see a line of lava flooding from a hill. Hayley avoids it as best as she can as she stumbles up the top, as we then see a big volcano in front of her. As she stops there for a second and sits down and takes a rest, she looks at her leg after what the tiger did, as she looks at the bleeding on her side, as she then stands there looking broken. As she looks inside the volcano, as we then see from down below, a reanimated gator is just standing inside. As she looks down at it and slowly backs up, we hear a gun clicking behind her, as we see Urban and 4 other men behind him riding in on a motorcycle. As he then gets out, as we see his face is still covered in blood, as he holds his shoulder and says, "God, still hurts. You know, you really should feel grateful that you walked in with Audrey. Otherwise, I would have skipped all the chit-chat and put you straight in my freezer, bitch." Hayley says, "Well, lucky for you, you're looking at an already dead woman walking. So it looks like your wish might come true after all." Urban says, "Enough of her. Take her alive. I'll have my fun with her later. As she then backs up towards the volcano, as the men are approaching, as she then drops the pickaxe and says, "Let me make it easy for you." One of the men says, "We appreciate the cooperation." Hayley says, "Sure thing." We then see the reanimated gator jumps and tackles one of them to the ground and then starts ripping them apart. As we then see it jumps on another one and kills it too. Hayley then stands there as we see Urban tries running, as the gator then grabs Urban by the pant leg and knocks him down. As we see, he's hovering over the lava. As we then see, he shoots it multiple times and it goes down. Urban then runs back to his motorcycle as the last guy tackles Hayley down. As they fight, we hear the sound of shaking ground beneath their feet. As we see Hayley fighting this guy back and forth, as Urban then sees a shot and gets out like a coward on his bike and drives away to save his own life. Hayley is fighting to get this guy off of her, as we then hear a gunshot. As we see the man got shot in the head. As Hayley looks to see, Billy used his last bullet he had to save his mother. He then sees Urban driving off and says, "Come on, Mom, we gotta follow him. We can't let him get away." Hayley pulls her son back and says, "No." He says, "But Mom, he's getting away." Hayley says, "Billy, stop." Billy says, "But I want to kill him." Hayley says, "Put that gun down. Give it to me." Billy says, "Why?" Hayley says, "Because I don't like what that thing is doing to you." Billy says, "But I saved your life." Hayley says, "Watch your tone, boy." As he stops and says, "I'm sorry, Mom." Hayley says, "Yeah, I am too." As she hugs her son, as we zoom out from the volcano, as they walk away from it together.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because the vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still.
The next day, we see the sun coming up as we hear multiple voices calling out for Billy. Dave says to Miles, "Any tracks? Anything?" Miles says, "Nah, I don't see nothing, man." Ashley says, "Well, we'll keep looking, okay? We aren't stopping, come on." Nobody is following her. Ashley says, Come on, what are you waiting for? Come on, we gotta find him." Dave says, "And how long are we gonna do this for, Ashley?" Ashley says, "For as long as it takes. Now come on." Dave says, "And how long will that be?" I mean, Christ, he could be deadhead food by now. Where Ashley gets right up into his face and says, "He's family. The only part of it that I may have left." She starts walking away trying to find him, and Dave says, "Ashley, look at me. Look at these children." We see most of the children are shivering, as Dave then looks at everybody and says, "Now do I have to all take you back to the night I killed Bishop? Now do I have to set you all straight again? Look what's in front of us, Ashley. These kids are tired, hungry, on the verge of freezing to death. You have a place to bring them in the near future? Because I don't." Dave takes his own jacket off and gives it to Natalie and lets himself freeze over the kids and says, "You want to wander off on a 50-50 chance that maybe we find him. While these kids, these families that are in front of our eyes right now die trying, either by cannibals that try gunning us down like they did last night, and you know they won't stop, or we die of a natural cause because of the state we're in." Ashley says, "Yeah, well maybe we wouldn't be in this position right now if this asshole didn't let us into a cannibal's house," as she points towards Audryn, and Dave says, "Ashley, if anybody knows what it's like losing a family, I do, alright? I almost killed myself over that loss,
And I'm afraid if we stay here, a bullet for a last meal will become an option once again. You told me about Ziltramite, and I denied. I don't trust it, but if it's the only shot we have left, and I ain't making this decision for everyone, but anybody that would rather stay here and die instead of going to a place that just may be where that doesn't happen. I'm taking that chance. I'm taking my chances on the maybe right now. As we see, nobody disagrees. As Ashley looks at Dave and says, I sure hope you know what the hell you're doing. We better not regret this. Let's go, before I change my goddamn mind.
Back in Canada, we see Tom with a bag on his head being taken off the train, as he and Arlo and a few other prisoners are being forced into this prison camp. As we see, they bring Tom into a building as he's trying to fight back, but then we see them lock him up in a dark room with a bunch of other prisoners. Back with Hayley. We see Hayley barely holding on to dear life, as she's looking pale, as Billy says, we need to find the others. Hayley says, we need to get back to the... She slowly starts going down as Billy tries holding her up as he says, No, you're not doing this to me now. First, Dad, I can't do this again. He looks out into the distance as we see an old town, as he then helps her up, as they then go on to the old town, as they go into an old drugstore. And as soon as they get inside, Hayley collapses on the floor as Billy sees she's not waking up, and he says, No. This can't be it, please. Mom, wake up. Wake up. You fucking wake up, please. Please. Back with Dave and the others. We see them getting all packed up, as we see Dave says, we head out in 2, as we see Audrey says, y'all be safe. Dave walks up to him and says, hey, what the hell are you talking about, man? You're coming with us. Audrey says, I'm not. I'm sorry, buddy, but I'm not. Look, man. He whispers into his ear and says, you know you're my favorite, right? Listen, man. I gotta get out of here. I've wronged these people too many times, and frankly, I can't do it again. And I'm not trying to rain on this somber parade here, but it's very clear that you're walking into a trap. I just can't go through that again. I get why you're going, I do, but I can't. We hear Mal says, hey, we going? Dave says, I'm coming. He shakes Audrey's hand and says, look, I get it, all right? If you insist, if you're sure, we'll be on Channel 8 if you change your mind, all right? Audrey says, farewell, Dave Miller. I truly hope this isn't it forever. But who knows? I mean, in these lonely roads, I have a feeling you and I are not done. As he splits off from the group, as we then hear Matthew yelling, hey, listen, let me tell you something, old man. Get the fuck in or I'll drag you in. Dave says, fuck you, and I'm driving. As they all get in and drive away to meet their destination. Back with Hayley and Billy. We see Billy scrambling trying to find something to save her with, as he finds a disinfectant and tries his best to save her life as quickly as he can. As we see Hayley slightly opens her eyes, as he says, Mom, can you hear me? She smiles and says,
Lincoln?
As we see in her point of view, Lincoln walks in, dressed in a nice suit, as he says,
Are you with me, honey?
Hayley says,
You came back.
Lincoln says,
I always do. Look at you. Still more badass than me.
Hayley says,
Why are you here?
Billy, in reality, says,
Mom, it's me. Please, just stay with me. Stay with me.
Hayley says in her point of view,
You should see him. He's grown up so much already. It's like I don't even recognize him anymore.
Lincoln says,
You did what I asked you to do, honey.
Hayley starts crying and says,
I think I lost them, honey. Dave, Tom, Miles, everyone. I think I lost them all. I couldn't protect them like you did. I tried. I hoped, but I couldn't. At least now, I get to be with you and them.
Lincoln looks upset as he says,
No, you're not.
Hayley says,
My time has come. It's okay.
Billy says in reality,
No, don't leave me, Mom, please. I can't do this on my own.
Lincoln says in her vision,
Listen to our son. He may be stronger than both of us combined one day, but that day is still far from now. I need you to protect our son.
Hayley says,
How can I do that when I've already failed as a leader?
I'm not strong enough, Billy says in reality.
No, you are strong. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Please, I promise you I won't ever do it again. Please don't leave me. I don't want to face this world gone mad alone. Please.
Lincoln says in her vision,
I failed as a leader, and I knew when to go. And I'm all right up here. It was nice to see Luke again. Now listen to me. I died so that you could protect our son. Our people, they come and go, and I wish that they lived, but they didn't. Our boy is a must. You have to promise me. When you pull through this,
Hayley says,
I can't pull.
Lincoln says,
When you pull through this, you have to promise us.
As she then sees Ryan and Macy standing with Lincoln, as he looks at her and he says,
Protect him while I protect them. And one day, when we're old and gray, we will all be one big family again. Nothing is gonna change that.
Hayley says,
I'll try.
Lincoln says,
Protect him, no matter what, no matter how hard it gets, how much you think it's impossible, no matter where you are and what the circumstances are, you protect our son at all costs.
Hayley says,
I will. I promise.
Lincoln says,
I love you. Now go do what you do.
He lets her go as Hayley, in reality, passes out as Billy cries out in tears. Two days later, we see Hayley opens up her eyes as we see a bright light shining and the sound of birds chirping. And then we see the sun shining in the window of the store, revealing Hayley survived. As she slowly gets up and says, Billy? She walks outside to see several deadhead corpses outside of the store. As she looks worried, as we then hear, Hi, Mom. She turns around to see him with a bloody machete, as he says, Took you long enough to wake up? I thought you were dead. Hayley says, How long was I out? Billy says, Little over 2 days. Hayley says, Did you kill all of them all by yourself? Billy looks down at the bloody machete and says, Yeah, I've been killing a lot of them lately. Uncle James taught me. Hayley looks horrified as she says, Billy, he was a monster, sweetheart. Billy then says, Well, maybe in your perspective, but he taught me how to be a survivor. It's a shame that Daddy couldn't be around to do that. Hayley looks put off as we see her just stand there in total shock. Back at Blackberry Ranch, we see Scott walks back to Urban as he says, You get it done? Jesus, what the fuck happened to your eye? Scott says, I failed, Dad. Little fucking psychopath fucking shanked me. And I have a fucking feeling I haven't seen the last of him. Urban says, Wait. You got shanked by a young little kid? That's disappointing there, son. Scott says, Well, what did you want me to do? Urban then punches him in the face and he falls to the ground as he says, Clean up this mess. Our little freezer idea ain't cutting it no more. Clear the barn. We're making some adjustments around here. Back in Canada, we see Tom in this dark room as we see two soldiers walking up to him as he says, Please, if you're gonna kill me, just fucking get it over with. I want to be with my family. Please, just fucking do it. The soldier walks up behind him and then whispers in his ear as they say, Keep your voice down. Turn around slow. Tom turns around and says, Who are you? The soldier says, You're Tom Tremblay, right? Tom nods as the soldier says, Well, lucky for you, you have some friends on the inside. As the months go by, as we see Dave and the crew traveling across to Canada on their way to Ziltramite, as we see Hayley over the months building up her strength up again, as day in and day out, she watches Billy outside the store, just killing deadheads after deadhead, just killing deadhead after deadhead. And as we then see, 5 months later, as we see her standing over the volcano holding her pickaxe as she says, I lost my son a while back. I was offered something. Ever since I was, everything that's happened has been worse for me. As Billy walks up to her, wearing his dad's hat and says, Time to go? Hayley then says, Yeah, time to go. As Hayley hits the road with her son, as they walk away together.
I'm walking down the line that divides me somewhere in my mind, on the borderline of the edge and where I walk alone. Between the lines, what's up and everything's alright. Check my vitals.
A few days later, we see Dave and the others walking as the wind is picking up, and Dave hears static on his walkie-talkie, and he picks it up and says, Hey, this is Dave Miller, I copy. Ah, shit. Fucking idiot must have got out of range. Ashley says, Yeah, we should find a place to hunker down for the night. Stay out of the cold. Miles says, You think it's real? Dave says, I mean, maybe. It's a big guessing game by this point. Miles says, Well, I hope they have a barber. This hair is driving me nuts. Dave says, Yeah, I kind of prefer your bald look, I'm not gonna lie. Ashley says, You'd look like an egg without your hair. They all start laughing. Out of nowhere, soldiers turn on lights in all directions around them, as we see groups of dozens of soldiers dressed in black ambush them and says, "Drop your weapons, hands in the air!" They all cooperate as they then point their guns towards Dave, and one of them says, "We won't ask again." Dave looks pissed and puts his gun down as they're surrounded with their hands up in the line of fire. And as Dave hears a soldier walking up to him, as they look at Dave directly in the face, and then Dave starts to smile as he looks at this soldier in front of him as he says, "Well, son of a bitch, I didn't think you survived." We see the Ziltramite train driving down the tracks, as we see Kezia looking out the window, as we see her and Ben playing cards, as she says, "It's your turn, kid." Ben says, "I won again." Kezia says, "What? No way. Wow, now you really cornered me there. You're a little genius, kid." Ben laughs and says, "That's 4 times in a row, I beat you." Kezia looks happy that she's gotten a smile on the kid's face again.
5 minutes from destination. 5 minutes.
Kezia says, "Alright, kid. I know it's scary, but whatever we see in this place, I don't want you leaving my sight, okay?" Ben says, "Oh, okay. I won't." Kezia says, "You promise?" Ben says, "I promise." We then see the train stops. We see Kezia and Ben stepping off the train and being escorted by 3 soldiers, as they then walk into a facility building, as they get led into a room, as they get locked into an office, and the soldier says, "The conductor will be with you within the hour." Kezia says, "Within the hour?" The soldier says, "The conductor is a very busy man. He'll be with you shortly, ma'am." The soldier exits the room, and Kezia immediately grabs one of the chairs and breaks it in half and gives one of the legs of the chair to the kid as she sharpens it and says, "If they try something, we need to be ready, okay?" Ben says, "Okay." Ben looks nervous as we see some time goes by as they've been sitting in this room for a little bit as we hear the door opens. We see a man walks in as he says, "Well there, gentlemen. I sure hope this is worth interrupting my lunch. I've told the commander before I don't want to do things on his time." He sees Kezia and says, "Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm the conductor." He shakes her hand and he says, "Kezia Taylor, and you must be Benjamin." Ben doesn't say anything and Kezia says, "He's with me." The conductor says, "Oh, no, I heard all about what happened. It's mighty kind of you to keep that young lad safe. It gives me hope that you plan on staying." He pulls out a pen and paper and says, "Well, all right. So you are Kezia Taylor, 33 years old and originally from Philadelphia." And you, Kezia stops him and says, "Wait a minute. I never gave you my age and where I came from." The conductor gives her a smile and says, "Oh, don't worry. I may have just pulled a few strings and talked to the right people. Gave me everything I needed to know about you. The commander is really looking forward to seeing you. When he heard about what you did back there, trying to save everyone in that camp, pulling the trigger when instructed to, and taking care of little Ben here really warmed the commander's heart. And it warmed mine. Kezia Taylor, I've got one more question for you, and it's an important one. Is there any outside ties that you may have? Anything else that I should know about before you become a full member of Ziltramite?" Kezia then thinks about all her friends as she says, "No, sir. Nothing." The conductor says, "Well, I am very excited to tell you this, and it gives me great pleasure in saying these words, Kezia and Benjamin. Welcome to Ziltramite." as he gives her a smile, as Kezia gives him a fake smile back. She walks outside as we see a huge group of trucks and soldiers driving around, and soldiers in all directions, as she then walks through them with Ben as they climb up a guard tower, and as they make it to the top and look out across the river to see Toronto, Canada. As we see a fully functioning city, as we see she looks at Ben, and they stand there in total shock. Back with Roger. We see him sitting by a campfire smoking the last cigarette from Bishop's pack, as he reaches in his bag and pulls out a camera. As he fires it up, we see Hayley on the camera saying, "Hello, my name is Hayley Kamala West." As we see Roger watching this video, as he says, "Where did you go off to, Mrs. West?" He then pulls out his walkie-talkie as he says, "Does anybody read? Mrs. West? You there? Anyone?" We see someone come out of the woods as we hear them say, So you know Mrs. West? Very kind, yet brutal lady." Roger gets up quickly and aims his gun towards him as we see it's Audrin, as he says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 holster your tits there, bud. I'm a friend." Roger looks at the chainsaw and says, "Yeah, the chainsaw looks awfully friendly." Audrin says, "Well, likewise, because that is one crazy-ass creation you got yourself there, good friend. I'd give you a high five, however, unfortunately." He removes the chainsaw from his stump, revealing Audrin also only has one hand, as he says, "Well, we may be total strangers, yet somehow we may have survived a miracle. Now, we could either kill each other, or maybe not be so stupid and you can join me. I'm crossing the border. America has not been my place lately, and I've had no luck here whatsoever." Roger just quietly says, "I haven't either." Audrin says, "Well, I'll let you tag along, but I really would like to know how you know Hayley West. Tell me all that on these lonely roads." As he smirks at him, as they agree to partner up.
Roger and Audrin took to the road. Dusty desert, heat, bold and cold. With a map to Mexico made of gold. Mezcal dream stories to be told.